Get ready to dive deep into Buffalo's vibrant music scene because we're stepping inside the fabulous Flamingo Lounge for the 8th season of local music magic. In the Flamingo Lounge with Rockabilly Greg is more than just a podcast. It's a collection of stories that delves deep into the vibrant musical history of Buffalo and Western New York, creating a living archive where each story adds a unique thread to the overall narrative. This season, we're taking a deep dive into the heart of the music community. Join us for personal conversations with musicians and industry pros where we celebrate the collective creativity that makes our favorite artists, venues, and events so special. But before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsors, CatsLikeUs.com, Diamond Hawk Golf Course and Pub, and valued supporter Buffalo Ironworks for helping to keep the music alive. Buffalo-based folk duo Sally Schaefer and Tyler Bagwell breathe fire into folk songs old and new, including a treasure trove of Americana, Celtic, and Erie Canal music. Sally is a well-known ethnomusicologist and musician around the Western New York area, appearing with numerous bands and recording for various projects representing an array of musical genres. Tyler is an award-winning historian and patchwork songwriter with a busker's voice in search of couplets within the notion that history rhymes. Together, they invent and reinvent songs highlighting events, people, and places of local and national note. For larger shows, they often play with the addition of bass and drums as folk rock band, the Travesties. It is my honor to welcome to the Flamingo Lounge, Sally Schaefer and Tyler Bagwell.
Thanks.
Guys,
Thank you so much for having us, Greg.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to have you both back. So, I'm switching the tables here. So the last few months I've been having folks that I've had down here as a band come and tell their solo story. But you guys were doing the opposite. I had you down here a while back, both individually telling your solo story, and now you're here as a duo. So figuring you got a really cool event coming up in a couple weeks here from when this will air. Actually, I think it's going to be a week after this is posted. So, and you've just completed some work on some grants that you received from Art Services for NISCA grants. So we're got a lot to unpack, as they say. So, but I'd like to start. Normally, I start with my infamous aha moment question, but I've done both of that with you for your solo shows. But so maybe we start out with your aha moment when you guys kind of got together as a musical duo.
Well, the start of us playing together was a lecture I was putting on at the Buffalo History Museum in March of what must have been 2023. I was working on a presentation of material that was telling Buffalo's Irish heritage story through song, and so I was collecting a lot of songs from the Erie Canal and songs about the Fenian invasion and songs that Chauncey Olcott had written, and putting these things together. And there was one tune in particular called Kitty O'Neill's Champion Jig that I had in the mix, and it's just an instrumental vaudeville fiddle tune, and I had I made some attempts myself of trying to learn it on mandolin, and so I could include it with the rest of the songs in the presentation. And I came to the conclusion that it would be easier to find somebody who actually knew how to play an instrument that could lend their services to the presentation. So I had seen Sally play at Revolution Gallery with, I believe it was Heart of the Dog. Mm-hmm. And so she came to mind, reached out to her, and ended up playing on that History Museum lecture along with Patrick Jackson, and been playing together since.
And I had heard, when Tyler emailed me, I had already heard of him because I was playing with my friend Christina Stock for a Nickel City B-Sides live show. So our friends Brittany Cedar and Mike Shamil have done a series where they do audio and video of local musicians doing original songs. And they had taken all of those, and then they actually put together a live performance where they had some of the people that they had recorded come back and do a live thing. And they also did audio and video of that, and, had like a live broadcast. Oh, cool. So I was playing guitar and violin with Christina, And in between acts, they were playing songs that they had recorded of other people. And Tyler Bagwell was singing probably Grain and Water, because they had done a video of that. And I was like, who is this? They sound like an 80-year-old man. And it's like very interesting, folky, like gritty folk music. And they were like, oh, that's Tyler Bagwell. I'm surprised you don't know him and you haven't like met him yet, because you guys kind of both do similar folky Buffalo things. And then like a month later, that show was in December, and then Tyler emailed me in January about this upcoming lecture he was doing. And so yeah, I got brought on to do it, and then we kind of started playing more and more shows together, and that's where that started.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, do you guys both play kind of in a very traditional kind of folk style, where you're just kind of picking up what's been done, and as opposed to a lot of like lecture or student type of learning, where the folk tradition is just kind of like someone plays it, you listen to it, you do your thing? Because I remember I was on the board of the Genesee Arts Council years ago, and for 4th of July there was always a picnic in Centennial Park, which was across the street from where I lived. But to make that picnic happen, we always centered it around a folk music festival. And got local folks who were doing folk in the traditional sense, and putting together a book that was all NISCA grant money. And which I want to mention that because you guys got some NISCA grant money to do some cool stuff with that. So I kind of wanted to use that to kind of segue, because I got to get my hands on. We used to do some really cool publications back then. I worked for a printer, and it was part of the grant that we had to have a written kind of book thing to leave behind. And I wish I could get my hands on those. They're probably at least 35 years old at this point. And I've asked around, and, the place I used to print, they're like, yeah, that's stuff. If we had any, they're long gone. But maybe somebody out there listening is holding on to one, because it would be, I think, pretty cool, because there was some really cool folk artists way back then. I remember there was a group from Albion called the Brown Brothers, and they were awesome, doing stuff together, and bluegrassy type folk, which was really cool. So I'm going to start, Tyler, with you, with your grant. So what did your grant encompass, and what was like the end product that you put together for the grant?
So the project as it is collection of original songs that I wrote that sort of started in conjunction with a lot of the Buffalo folk music history that I've been working in for the past 10 years. And it started as I was trying to study Buffalo songwriters, and was looking at the Goo Goo Dolls and Dyke and the Blazers and Rick James and Willie Nile and Ani DeFranco, and trying to get a handle on, the subject matter and the feeling of what all these, notable Buffalo songwriters were writing about, to kind of get a foundation of, trying to find my own voice and what that meant. And through doing that, I started digging into the 1800s and the folk music that was there around the canal and lake sailor songs, and sort of went off on this tangent for a really long time, where I was masquerading as a historian and giving presentations at museums and publishing articles in history magazines, and got caught up in that for a long time, and eventually came back around to what the original idea was try to figure out what it means to be a Buffalo songwriter. And so I finally took all of the osmosis learning that I'd done through studying all this Buffalo music history, and started to synthesize it into some original writing. And so the outcome is this project called Good Bones, which is a collection of songs that are really greatly influenced by Buffalo music history and labor history, and focuses around this sort of theme of specific people throughout Buffalo history. I don't know how many times I can say Buffalo history, and
not enough
in this chain of sentences, but and so that's what the project is. The outcome is this collection of 10 songs that I wrote, and the end of the project was a performance at Eugene V. Debs Hall of the songs, and then the next step is getting them down on record, which is forthcoming.
Cool. So now, is there any kind of written publication or any kind of text around all that, or
not at present?
Okay.
But it'll be part of the recording. Will be the publication of the text and the songbook.
Yeah, because you're speaking exactly to this. That's why I do this podcast. I love the music history. I'll say a music history of Buffalo and Western New York. It's just fantastic, and so diverse and so rich, right? And I remember when I had you on the last time, you were like, "Yeah, I wanted to talk about this folk or this person or whatever this time in history," and there wasn't a song to go with it, so I wrote one, and I'm like, "That's pretty damn cool," It's like. But in the style of what would have happened too around, that time. And I can't remember if it was you or someone else that, was talking about, the guys would be right there at the lake, or at the harbor there. And they'd be, I forget all the details, and that's kind of where, music has started right there at the Erie Canal. And
people singing while they're working. And
right.
It's a neat thing to think about the continuum. We were talking to a friend of ours and a neighbor of my sister who was talking about the Scottish folk songs, the
Auld Lang Syne.
No, he was talking about the working songs of was it Weavers?
Oh, yes. People, mostly women, weaving a cloth, I guess, and the songs that they use, so the work songs that they use while they're weaving, because it's easier to do if you're doing it rhythmically,
right?
And in a group, it makes the time pass faster, and maybe also it's helpful for getting in a rhythm.
But I was thinking about that often where I returned to work today and work in a brewery, and my boss was there and he was listening to some very energetic electronic techno sort of music,
right?
And made a note of it's a real party in here now.
Yeah.
And he was just mentioning that he was sluggish and he needed a little something to get through the rest of the day, and thinking about the sailors working on boats and singing songs.
Yeah.
And it's just still happening in its own way, where you've got the radio at work and you're singing along to get you through it. Exists in a different fashion.
Some brewery songs, brewery work songs. I don't know what the repetitive tasks that you're doing that you need.
Brewery shanties.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to dig up. I worked for. I've been in the printing business since forever, and the company I worked with opened up downtown in the old Trico building on Ellicott Street, and of course, Ulrich's Tavern is right next door, and so we found this local guy. If you probably know him, Steve Powell. And Steve's a photographer, videographer, but he wrote a book called Rushing the Growler.
The book I'm familiar with.
Yeah, and it's all about the breweries of Buffalo. So I'll bet you that would be very cool companion. I know he says, I haven't reprinted it in at least 25 years or so with it, or more, when we published that. So, and I know it's hard to find now. But it was really interesting to hear about all that
tremendous brewing history here.
Yeah, tremendous. And that, the guys would come out of the factory with their little metal cups that they called their growlers, and because pasteurization wasn't around yet, so they'd have fresh beer, and the breweries would go over and they'd pour beer into these guys' growlers. They'd pop, pound a couple back and then go back in, and who knows what kind of machinery these guys were working around, and probably half tanked up. You wouldn't see that.
Hopefully only half.
Yeah. But cool stuff, and it makes me think there was an episode of The Big Bang Theory where Penny makes her penny blossoms. I don't know if you're a Big Bang Theory, and Sheldon has her singing, Blow the Man Down, and they're putting everything together, doing the same thing. He says, it increases productivity, and they had a whole rhythm going, and me as the graphic designer, we learned to do graphics with the radio, and that right brain, left brain thing too. So it's pretty interesting.
You've got some work songs in your project.
I do.
Some lake sailing songs.
That's right. There's a couple. Well, one of them is an actual shanty. I try to make this distinction because some maritime related songs are shanties that would get used while people are working, and they're considered shanties. And some of them are more like, like Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is not a shanty because it's not used as a work song, but it's a song that somebody wrote about maritime life.
Okay.
So there's a distinction, but there's one on there that is a work song, and there's another one that's more just like an account of people's trips on the lakes.
So a traditional shanty then would have to be something that's related to people working and
yes,
doing some kind of a physical thing?
Right. Or? Usually they have a rhythmic element that people are either walking around the capstan, which is the big thing in the middle of the ship that raises and lowers the anchor, and also sometimes big sails, or doing other, like anything that's rhythmic that you need a bunch of people to be in time. But there's also what they call forecastle shanties, and those are more like to pass the time. So they're still kind of considered part of the shanty tradition, but they're not necessarily work songs. However, I would say they're all pretty much considered in the realm of like public domain folk. I mean, I'm sure people wrote them, but they change, the lyrics change over time. The sailors change the lyrics to be about where they're going or where they're from, or, they change the locations and some other things in them. Whereas something like Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is obviously, it's not public domain yet.
Right. Yes.
Will be in 100 years. So that's like a song that was written about sailing, but it's not a shanty.
Yeah. Gordon Lightfoot. Love it. So my buddy performs that one every now and then. That's a good tune. Long but kind of repetitive and kind of a downer. I mean, it's a tough story. And what you're describing too kind of seems very much in the same realm as how the blues started, right? They were just out in the fields, doing their work, but keeping that rhythm and keeping it going.
Yep. It's entertainment, but it's also coordinating the work that you're doing, and it passes the time.
Right. Yeah. I hate silence. When I'm at work, man, if it's quiet, I'm like, oh, it's deafening. So, I'm used to having that. Yeah. Even the sound of, I work in a printing company, even the sound of the presses, having that same kind of repetitive, you can tell when everything's closed, when everything's shut down, it's like, oh, what happened?
There's, when you work in a noisy place, the sound of silence is sometimes a marker that something is going wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Because why isn't anything making noise?
Yeah. Well, of course, too, me as a sales guy, when you don't hear the presses going, that's when you got to get on the phone and start doing something. But kind of getting back to the music, so you guys performed some music for us. So those tunes that we did a little recording before we got on air here, and I think now might be a good time to bring one of those tunes in and talk about it a little bit and how it fit in with your program.
Yeah, I'd talk about Irish Weather a little bit. This is sort of one of the first, after Sally and I started playing together, this was one of the first songs I wrote where I had the fiddle in mind. We started playing together, and I had, a catalog of songs that were my own, and Sally was, writing parts for them to fit in, and being in a very basic folk singer tradition, a lot of my songs are very simple, and I don't write melodies to them, and they're just, this is,
I don't know if that's classic for folk singers.
It's maybe classic.
Just
that's
some of you no melodies.
That's the way we do it. But so the Irish Weather was the first song that I wrote with the fiddle in mind, and thinking about, what the melody is and where it goes. And I had written it really hoping that Sally would write a part to it, so it could be a duet. And
in the style of, the Pogues' Fairy Tale of New York, for instance.
Yeah, it was very built off of that mindset. And I wrote it, and we performed it for a long time as just me singing, and now it's what it is now.
Right.
I hadn't written a part, and I kind of forgot about it, and I thought, I don't know how to write a part for this song that's in the style of Tyler Bagwell. How would I write a part that's both my voice but like fits into the overall You know, I thought it'd be kind of weird to write something that was more in my voice if it didn't really like fit the style of the overall song. And then I, for some reason, had a burst of inspiration. I don't really know where it came from. And I thought, and I had an idea. It started with one of Tyler's favorite words, wayor, which is W''O''E''R, which means way over. And right?
I'm a big fan. I forget what at some point in time, you're a child and you're learning poetry or songs, and that comes up, the O''E''R. Is it in the Star Spangled Banner? I think that's probably the first place you see it as a kid.
In every crossword puzzle, it's in there.
And you go, what is this word? And a teacher explains that it's over, but if you said the word over, it wouldn't fit, I guess. So they make it over.
Right, it's one syllable instead of two.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like you could have gotten. It seems like somebody who was selling contractions made some money getting that one through. Yeah. And so I'm a big fan of it.
Where does wayor appear?
Where
did you get it from?
Where did I get it from? The Star Spangled Banner?
No,
or the
wayor
as a entire one? I feel like there's some Irish songs that have it in it.
It's in Grain and Water.
It's in
one of Tyler's
song
originals.
That I wrote called Grain and Water.
And I took it from that, and it was like the first line that I used, and then it just the rest of the lyrics kind of flowed from there. So we finally were able to put it together as a full-length Tyler Bagwell song, which has to be at least 4 minutes. There are no songs shorter than that on a Tyler Bagwell album. And now it's the full song with both of our parts in it.
Well, that's great to kind of, see how in true folk style that the music is evolving. Right?
Yes, exactly.
And becoming something new, and you're always experimenting, and maybe that inspiration just kind of came because of that. Hey, this is now kind of getting into your blood, and it's getting into your system, and you're like, yeah, this would work, and with your background in ethnomusicology, probably would, because now a lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of this music is really kind of based in the Irish tradition. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a big Americana and Irish, I would say. There's an overlap. And Irish music coming from Ireland and then getting incorporated into Americana. So like the overlap between all of those things. Irish trad and Irish folk singing and American old time and some bluegrassy stuff, and country music too. Yeah,
that all those genres you mentioned pretty much go back to the Irish tradition and the folks coming here and in Appalachia, and just kind of being folky and that,
and mixed with blues, of course.
Right, of course.
Yeah, blues and gospel, and then country and rock and roll coming out of that. And
right.
That's where I'm sure Tyler talked about this on his first podcast, which I did listen to the whole thing. But I'm sure it came up that he heard Jimi Hendrix. He had a Jimi Hendrix album, and as he was looking at the Hendrix album, he was like, "Who wrote where did these come from?" And he went back in time to
Bob Dylan.
And then before that,
Woody Guthrie.
And then before that, well, Bob Dylan has a lot of songs that are based on Irish traditional songs. So and you just change the names.
Bob Dylan
thought nobody would notice.
A lot of songs that he was hanging out with the Clancy brothers, and he was just like, "I'll take all of this."
Yeah, I remember going. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had an annex in New York City a bunch of years ago. I think like 2008. It was only open for less than a year because it was expensive to keep open in New York. But they had all these exhibits and the same kind of thing. It's like Bessie Smith started here and then went to, like Billie Holiday, and then went to here and went to Janis Joplin, and then to Melissa Etheridge, and all these different exhibits from kind of going way back, and then just following the path of where someone started and what the next person kind of took from that, but made it into their own, and then on and on. I was fascinated. I could have just been there the whole day, and it was this whole self-guided tour too, which was cool. So it was really, it was kind of cutting edge at the time. You just put on the headphones and you walk up to the exhibit, and it would play the music and give you the voiceovers, and so you didn't have to have a docent or anything like that. So I was like, this is cool, and
it's fascinating to trace where the things over. I remember somebody, I don't know how I found this. There's a map online somewhere. I wish I could remember the website, that is just like a huge web of all genres and subgenres of music and how they have overlapped each other, and like where they start and branch out and diverge and become subgenres and interact with other genres. And then at each point, there's also like a mini playlist of songs that you can listen to in each of those. And you see like where the influences came from and where they overlap and where they diverge. And it's really interesting. And that's kind of my Niska project was about New York State folk music, folk songs. And it's called New York State Fiddle and Song is the name of the project, and also what I named the album. And it's all folk songs and fiddle tunes that are somehow related to New York State historically. And so some of them are things that were collected in New York State or written by people in New York State or about people and places in New York State. And yeah, you find when I was researching things to use in the project, I was trying to also look at different influences. So Irish traditional music that had an influence on things that are being played in New York State, but also Quebecois, French Canadian style tunes that are coming in from, Scottish tradition to Cape Breton, and then through like French and Acadian music, and then down to New York, people who are in the north, like Vermont and northern New York State. And there's a long fiddling tradition in New York of fiddlers that are like up in northern New York and then central New York and western New York, and they all have slightly different styles and influences of tunes, and Irish immigrants coming to New York State and trying to incorporate all those types of angles. And so I made a whole collection of songs and tunes that have to do with all of those aspects. The Great Lakes as well, as we talked about. There's some shanties on there and Great Lake sailing songs, and combining all of that into an album. That was a solo album. It was just me. Lots of fiddle, lots of overlapping. And when you play, this would probably be a good time somewhere in here to play the tune that I did that is called Lake Erie Air, which that one's an original. I wrote it, but if you were to analyze it from an ethnomusicology perspective, you could hear that there's strains of other tunes, of folk tunes in it. One of the songs that Tyler and I play is called Paddy on the Canal, and it's a historical song that was printed on a broadsheet in what year?
Sometime in the mid 1800s. And
it's about an Irish American immigrant working on the canal, the canals in the United States. And part of the beginnings of writing this tune was like almost doing a minor key version of the tune that's used in that song. And it sort of started there and became its own thing. And then I realized after I wrote the tune and was kind of adding chords and harmony parts to put in it, there's like strains from this other tune in it called Pretty Girl Milking a Cow, which I know is an Irish traditional tune that I learned at Geneseo String Band with Jim Kimball. It was one that he transcribed from somebody. And you can hear like there's a little portion of a melody in there, and that's how folk music works. It all gets put together. Sometimes you don't know where they came from, and somebody else is like, I hear something in here that reminds me of something else. So that's what that tune is. And there's one other original on there called Low Bridge Reel, which is really just like an instrumental accompaniment to the song Low Bridge that everybody learns. I wanted to create like an instrumental tune that could kind of be played after the song.
Well, why don't we take a few minutes here and we'll listen to Lake Erie Air off of the name of the CD is
New York State Fiddle and Song.
All right, so let's listen to Lake Erie Air. I like it. That's and of course you had your looper on there, so it's crazy
Yes.
what you can do with all the cool toys and everything. And
The looper, an octave pedal to create the bass, and
okay,
a freeze pedal that creates a drone underneath it.
that's wild. So now, as far as both of your grants, so let's give a little shout out to who you got the
Yes.
money from, because that's always important to help us artists out.
The money is from New York State Council on the Arts,
Okay.
and we applied through a local organization called Art Services Inc. of Western New York. Art Services Initiative of Western New York. They're the ones that they will help you put your application together. They submit it on your behalf, and then New York State Council on the Arts is the one.
Yeah, Art Services actually awarded me a grant so I could get this podcast off the ground. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Very nice.
well, a little bit after I started, but yeah,
Big thanks to them all around.
yes, big thanks to them and to New York State Council on the Arts. And as I mentioned, I used to be with the Genesee Orleans Regional Arts Council and helped dole out some of those grants way back when. And it's nice when we can get the backing of of the government and to back arts up. And going back, I mean, you're kind of speaking my language because I have both Irish. I mean, my last name's Hennessy, so my great grandfather, I think, interestingly enough, only one. I have to look, but when my dad passed away a few years ago, I looked at all the paperwork that they came, and only one of them listed that they came from Ireland, like of my grandfather's like siblings and his father. Only one said they were from Ireland. Everyone else said they were from New York City. It's like back then, because back then that was
right.
They were the minority, right?
Right.
And the Irish, and then of course on my mom's side, I'm Scottish, so and they did the same thing. They came into
Came through
Canada,
Mhm.
settled up in Grimsby for a while, and then came over here to Dunkirk, and and here we are. So it's interesting to see all of that and how everything kind of. Now there was no music, unfortunately, there. Although my grandfather was a piano player, but I never heard him play piano. But it would be interesting to kind of go back and really dig into that. So you whet my appetite for this stuff because and the funny thing is, when I was like in high school, I could have given two turds about history. I mean, I'm like, what do we need this stuff for? This is just stupid. But now I can't get enough of it.
I think is maybe, well, some people are interested in it from the beginning, but maybe as you get older, you you want to delve more into your own roots, like
Right.
your own family tree, and then also like the socio-historical aspects of like where those people were coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I think a lot of it's just a simple curiosity. You see a footprint somewhere, and you just how did that get there?
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Whose
Right.
is this?
Well, and then you see, you mentioned Chauncey Olcott. I mean, going way back to the, late 1800s, 1900s, and When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, and of course, everyone thinks that song's an Irish song, and but created by a Buffalonian, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
From Buffalo?
Yeah, I feel like there's things like that constantly rise to the surface, that they're just little pieces of our own history that people have forgotten or just aren't as prevalent. And you're watching a movie and somebody leans over, you go, they're from here.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I do that all the time. I think I drive everyone nuts. I'm like, there's a Buffalo connection to this.
You have to say it.
I have to. Yeah.
As a historian of local merit, it is your duty to every time anything, people are like, is the air conditioning on?
Right.
That was invented here.
Yeah. Well, like I was just talking to someone, they're like, oh, you're a Swiftie. I says, yeah. And did you know Taylor Swift's like grandmother is buried down in Dunkirk in the cemetery. So
I didn't know that.
Fredonia, yeah. Huh. Her grandmother, great grandmother, one of the two. I can't remember exactly, but it's like, yeah, there's like a Buffalo, Western New York connection everywhere.
If you go back far enough, lots of people were here.
Yes.
The turn of the century, everyone, so many people were here, so many industries and businesses.
Right.
So.
Well, we were supposed to be the New York City because of the canal. We had more millionaires per capita in 1900 than anywhere else in the country at the time. And that was from the railroad, of course, from the railroad and from the canal. I don't know, there's lots of course, go down Delaware Ave, right? And there's Millionaires Road down there. All those great houses were all big money. Can you I mean, those are all now organizations and have multiple offices, and you go into these places and think, yeah, there was a family that used to live in these big, huge, places, which is crazy. And yeah, I could go down the rabbit hole forever on this stuff. It's just it absolutely amazes me when you start really digging into it. And again, that's why I love doing this podcast, because I see, as I've been talking to everybody on the podcast, how all of the tentacles are kind of intertwining, and someone's here and this one, kind of begat that one, and there's all kinds of overlap, and you really can see how the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And it really is starting to come together, which I find just, I want to keep, now I want to do more, if I was independently wealthy, I'd do one of these a day, if I could, but, because I don't think we'd ever run out of stories, to be honest with you.
No, it's always it's incredible the amount of time you spend in Buffalo, and you're friends with somebody for a couple of years, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you're at an event, and that person's cousin's there, and you're like, I know your cousin. I've known your cousin for 5 years, but I didn't know that you guys were cousins.
Yeah.
And it's we'll frequently joke, it's like there are 12 people in Buffalo. And everybody just knows everybody.
Right. Oh, I always say 1 degree of separation around here.
Yeah, 1.
There's no 6. There's no Kevin Bacons around here. It's just 1 degree.
You just need to figure it out. You just needed to talk to somebody long enough before you figure it out.
Did you put your other song in yet? You should. The next song.
I could now.
Yeah.
Could now. When this is going to air? I'm just going to go out on a limb and say confidently that this is going to air. The Buffalo Bills will still be playing in the playoffs.
Let's hope that the Buffalo Bills will still be playing. So
I'm going to say they will be.
Yeah.
Unless they're not. But
go Bills.
So this song was part of my project of things I was looking at and writing about, and a thing that I was coming up in a lot of the reading and talking to people was this connection between our use of sports as a community. And I was thinking a lot about the things that people say about bread and circuses, and how sports by and large are a big distraction for people, and whatever the other idioms they have that are about Buffalo's a drinking town with a football problem,
right?
And those sort of things. And I was trying to really think about like what for working class people, what the purpose of sports are, especially trying to justify something as violent and sort of seemingly unnecessary as football.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this essay that was written by a British psychologist who is studying this matter of why working class people are drawn to violent sports. And the explanation got down to the idea that if you're a working class person, you're sacrificing your body in a way for your job, for capitalism, for society. And in many cases, you never get to rise above it. And sports, especially violent sports like boxing and football, are opportunities for people to see other people who are sacrificing their bodies and are rising above it,
right,
and are getting celebrated and cheered on, and it serves a sort of ritualistic function,
right.
And so I was thinking about that when I wrote this song.
Yeah, it's interesting as you mentioned that, because my grandfather, I mentioned, from Scotland, actually was born in Manchester, England. He was a semi-pro baseball player. And he told stories when they played baseball back then in the 20s and the 30s. It was brutal. I mean, they were sharpening spikes. They were throwing the ball super hard. And you can imagine those mitts were only like a piece of leather.
Yeah. Tie cobs sliding feet first.
Yeah. I actually have a baseball signed by Ty Cobb.
Wow.
Yeah, that my grandfather had. And he played along in the same time that Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth were barnstorming. And he always told the story of how they offered him a job with the Yankees. And he said, nope. His father, who was a professional footballer, a soccer player over in England, played with a team called the Violets, said, learn a trade because no one can ever take that away from you because you can get hurt in sports and be done, in 2 seconds. And of course, back then they weren't paying. I have a letter that Firestone wrote to my grandfather in like 1927. And it was, move to Ohio, work in our factory, making tires, play on our sports team, on our baseball team, semi-pro team, and we'll pay you $6.50 a day. And that was big money back then, and I'm like, and of course he didn't do it. If he did, I wouldn't be here. But it's just interesting to bring that up, with the sports. So the song is titled Fourth and a Mile.
Yes.
Yep. And so why don't we give Fourth and a Mile a listen, and then we'll be back in a minute. Fourth and a Mile.
Let's trade the factories humming for these buzzing old lights. I've been waiting all week just to see somebody put up a fight. The barman clicks on the TV. He cracks the key on the crown. I got a week's worth of oil and grease. I'm gonna need a river to wash it on down. How about another? Sure, let's give it a try. He raises his glass to static and he says, Fourth and a Mile, I've been there every single day of my life. But I was thinking about Lawrence. How nothing's changed yet. When your son asks for bread, did you meet him with bayonets? Another darkened kitchen, another dreamless night. Believe me, you could set your watch by the sweep of the refrigerator light.
All right. Yeah. Now you wrote that, Tyler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's crazy how talented you guys are. I mean, you just kind of come up with the stuff. I couldn't do it. It's just not in me. My buddy can write songs and come up with ideas and melodies, and it's such a gift.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think it's being in the Buffalo ecosystem is very useful and inspiring. I feel that way being around a lot of other artists.
Yeah.
And we go out to see other people a lot, and it's great because you're just like get to see what everybody else is working on, and sometimes it inspires other things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we have a embarrassment of riches. I was over in the corner here, so I could take a picture of Captain Tom up in the corner.
Okay.
So I could send it to him, and whenever run into Captain Tom in public, he always greets me with I didn't expect to see you here, and so it was a joy to take that picture and send it to him and say I didn't expect to see you here in Greg Hennessy's basement.
That's right. Yeah, because the Polish tradition and the Irish tradition didn't quite blend, right? So
he's Tom is doing it. He's forcing it to come together.
Yeah, no, it's he's doing some cool stuff, and I just had Todd Knisik down here talking about his the Big Easy in Buffalo and how he's blending. Mm-hmm. Different jazz and what Captain Tom's doing and doing these shows, and it's really interesting to see, especially you'd think it's not going to work, but then it does.
We will be doing one of those type of shows for Todd and the Big Easy in Buffalo. I wish I could remember.
You could talk about it, and then I could remember the date.
It's in April. It's at the end of April.
You could set it up, and then I can figure out what the date is.
There you go.
It's the Travesties, so our full 4-piece band with Canela, the Tango Orchestra, which is a string quartet. It's two violins, viola, and cello. Mm-hmm. And they also sing, and they're really cool. We saw them at Duende a while ago.
Okay.
So he asked if we could do a collaboration with them. So it's, I don't know what we call ourselves, like labor history folk rock or something. The Travesties blended with the tango quartet, tango orchestra.
Right.
And we've been sending things back and forth. How can we collaborate with songs? And I think I asked Vanessa, what do you play that like maybe we would know, or and she was like, not a whole lot. Like here's some things. She mentioned a Buena Vista Social Club song that they do. So it'll be cool. We've sent some things. I'm hoping to arrange some of Tyler's original songs for strings, because I think it's a really cool opportunity to use like full strings, not just solo,
right.
Not just me, but like a full backing
sure.
kind of orchestral thing on some songs. So that's what that one will be. And the date is
on Thursday, April 30th
at Sportsman's Tavern.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
well, we'll have that link at rockabillygreg.com. So
perfect. And Tom, we are playing with Tom a bunch of times because we essentially have a residency at the Buffalo Irish Center in South Buffalo, which is usually the 4th Saturday. There's one in February that's the 3rd Saturday, but we are playing a bunch of just trio gigs with him.
Oh, cool.
One with Patrick Jackson, the first one, which this might air after that, so I'm not sure if this will be in time, but the rest of them are all with Captain Tom, the two of us and Captain Tom.
Wow. That's pretty wild. That I love how people in our area collaborate and cross, they cross-mogenate, as Austin Powers would say, and just and really work together and just create something that's just so unique to our area.
It's more fun that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because you can listen to the same old songs. I don't want to trash any genre or anything, but sometimes, especially radio gets so pigeonholed, and you have the same songs over and over and over, and it's like, wow. And then I hear people who like that, and they're like, oh, there's no good music anymore. I'm like, oh, heck no.
You just got to step outside.
You're not looking for it. Yeah. You got to, and it's not hard to find it around here, though. That's I think the beauty of where we live. It's not, you can find stuff Sunday through Saturday, even on Monday, which is, traditionally dead weeks.
Right. There's always, Nietzsche's always has music on Mondays.
Yeah.
They have they have a 6 to 8 happy hour. They have a songwriter showcase at 8, and then they have open mic later. There's always that going on.
It's amazing. We end up talking to a lot of people who are either moving back here from places or traveling around. People who mention that much larger cities have less music.
Yes.
And it's something to be, really thankful for, that we have this here. And especially thinking about it because I got out of the corner of my eye this you can't download a live musical experience magnet you have over there.
Yeah.
It's a good time in our historical timeline to really think about what live music means and how important it is when I think we're with the prevalence of so much internet content and artificial intelligence and all of these things that the purpose of storytelling and music and these things are about communication between humans. And as more of the communication that humans are trying to do between each other is being done by robots, it really shines the light on how valuable going out in your community and seeing your neighbors sit down in front of you and play some songs and tell some stories that are coming from their life experiences. It's really invaluable, and we're really lucky that we already have the infrastructure for it in Buffalo, and all you have to do is go out and see it.
Sure. Even from my standpoint with this podcast, I've had to do a couple, either over Zoom or because of where people are located or, on phone. And I just love having, we're all live down here, in the lounge talking, and there's just something about it where you can't get that connection, right? That over. I don't care how good you have a Zoom, or a virtual presence on your computer. It's just not the same.
Yes.
Because you can't see usually the facial expressions and all the mannerisms and everything that comes with having that interpersonal communication. And I'll say I've had two groups of young people down here. One was the Borderland Band Camp kids a few months ago, and then I had a group of students from the Kenton area. And I hear all the time, oh, these kids, they're always on the phone. They were awesome talking to each other, and the interpersonal connections they haven't lost it. Mm-hmm. I think they're just a little bit more insulated. It's like, we don't want to talk to the old people, around the old people. Just let them think that all we do is sit on our phones. But when they started going, man, I was just sitting back loving every minute of it because it's like, it was so great, to see. And those 2 episodes are like top 10 episodes. People love it. And I love it. And it's nice to see that our, future generations are, and especially like with the Borderland Band Camp kids, they're uber talented and what they're doing and the things that they're coming up with and, music styles. It's just crazy.
That's what we prefer. That's why we print out quarter sheets so we can hand them to people in real life instead of, it's like, I don't know, we all feel like we need to promote on social media because that's a place where people see things, which we still do.
Right.
But we find that having an in-person interaction and actually handing them, it's not like we're just in the street handing them to strangers, but we're trying to, if somebody asks, hey, like, I know you guys are playing, where are you playing next? And we just, it's in my pocket. I always have one in my pocket.
Yeah.
Put it on your refrigerator, or Tyler's got his mailing list for his newsletter.
I do have a mailing list for a newsletter that comes by the United States Postal Service. And if you're interested in receiving information, this is mainly an excuse for direct mail marketing.
That's right.
All right, but that's what I do for a living, so yay.
But I also include some fun things. I just sent out a New Year's card that I did some one-of-a-kind artwork, we'll call it, for all of them. It was a mix of stamps and some loose block printing ink that got strewn about. But anyway, if you're interested in receiving a mail newsletter, you can send me a mailing address at my email address, Bagwell T14, that's BAGWELL T14 at gmail.com, or you could send a letter to Tyler Bagwell at P.O. Box 295, Buffalo, New York 14207.
Yes, sign up for the mailing list.
Yeah. I'll have that information up at rockabillygreg.com, so you don't have to write it down. You can go grab that. You know, you bring into an interesting tidbit. I don't know if you know this, but do you know who the father of direct mail is?
I do not.
Father Baker was one of the first people to incorporate direct mail to raise money for the Basilica.
Wow.
Yeah. Right here from Buffalo.
That's a
everything,
factoid. Wow.
Everything was invented in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, he used to send out letters, and people would send him back a nickel or a penny. Back in those days, that was still a lot of money, or a quarter. I mean, a quarter was a ton of money, and but he would handwrite all these letters. I mean, now we do it all by computers and automated and stuff like that, but try to figure out is the best way we can do it so there's more of an interpersonal connection. I'll
be including this information about Father Baker in the next newsletter.
And asking for 25 cents.
Just Google it. There's a lot of stuff out there about it. I always use that when I talk about direct mail.
That's fascinating.
And use who's the father. And I've heard that he was the first, and then I've heard he was one of the first. So, but he was definitely a pioneer. Doing direct mail to raise funds. So that
makes sense because they're just celebrating their 100th anniversary of the Basilica. Christmas Eve, midnight mass. That was their 100th anniversary. I was there at 6:30, the previous one. And I heard midnight was like totally packed. You could not get in there.
Right.
Which I didn't expect. It's like, I know the Basilica is a big deal and people would go, but I feel like most people that I know, like I grew up Catholic, my parents are Catholic, they kind of like to go to their small neighborhood church, especially for like Christmas if you have kids.
Right.
So I didn't know if people would go, I don't know how many people for them that is their neighborhood church.
Right.
And there were so many people there and they had a choir and they celebrated their 100th anniversary. Yeah.
Well, that's my wife and I. My wife grew up Catholic. I grew up Protestant, and during Easter last year, we did a walking. Well, we drove around, but all the churches down on the east side there. So St. Stan's and St. Adalbert, and Todd Kneisek is on the board there at St. Adalbert. So he few months later had a jazz service at St. Adalbert's, which was really cool. My wife's like, we got to go see this. This is cool. Kind of a New Orleans inspired, and Jay Sharptet, was there. Jay and a couple other folks doing some really cool stuff. Elton Huff was on drums. I'm like, hey man, all these guys, and it was like, and how all of that kind of fit together. And my wife's like, I'm sure I'm boring you. I'm like, no, man, I studied a lot of these types of buildings, as an art major years ago, and, but the stuff that's over in Europe, but then you look at the architecture, and, and I was asking, because I think St. Adalbert's also a basilica, and I'm asking, why is it a basilica? Like, well, there are 7 altars, and here's that's what makes it, and there's other distinctions, and I was just fascinated by, and she's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah. I said, this is great. I said, I'm having a ball, it's, and the architecture, and then you can see kind of the older ones, and again, how they kind of got a little bit more modern and a little less ornate, as the time went on, but still had all the great stained glass and even the temple there on Delaware. We were just watching something on PBS, and the stained glass and all the why things were built the way they were, and I just it's just not by happenstance.
We were just looking something up about that because Tyler was convinced. He told me that glass is a liquid and it moves, and there's this, and I was like, that can't be. I studied chemistry in college. That cannot be. Like, it's a solid, but then I had to look it up because I'm like, what is the actual physics and chemistry behind this? And it is what did it say? It is like a moving solid. Like, something about it is debated in the scientific community because it has more movement than like a traditional solid. So there's like
the myth that was debunked. The thing that I had heard, which was apocryphal or just wrong, was that if you look at if you look at old church windows, they sometimes taper and they're thicker at the bottom.
Okay.
And the explanation was that glass is a liquid.
It's
and
super old, so it collects
It's
at
essentially
the
like
bottom.
melting into itself.
Wow.
And that's a thing I heard once somewhere and believed for my entire life and would tell to other people and would say emphatically, glass is a liquid. And then we looking into it. It's
That's just how they made them.
it's just the way that glass was made was sometimes it's getting thinned out at the edges when you're making the glass, and then it gets cut into pieces, and then maybe those pieces are getting into a place where they appear to be tapered at the bottom,
Right.
but they're just made that way. But
Anyway,
Yeah.
this is looking at church windows, very fascinating.
Yeah. We're getting in the weeds
The
here.
architecture, yes.
But this is fun. Well, guys, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and we still got one more tune we got to listen to. We got to listen to Irish Weather. I know we mentioned that at the top of the show, so kind of just kept talking. So, but I don't want to miss out on that. So, but that's a song we can end with. Both of you are on this tune. So,
Sure.
lead us into that song a little bit.
this is a song called Irish Weather.
Irish Weather, and this was part of your.
Yes, this is part of the Good Bones project.
Okay. Which will eventually. Now, before we get into the song, are any of these songs available just streaming at this point, Tyler, or not yet?
The two from this recording, no, but some of the other ones, Slats and Grain and Water,
Okay.
which appeared on a previous project of Sally and I's. Those are available on Spotify and Bandcamp.
And my album is up on Bandcamp at
Right.
the moment, and there will be
Okay.
physical copies
Giddy
shortly.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you performed Slats when you were here last time.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So I always am very honored that folks like you record songs that's not anywhere else and it's on the podcast. So thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us the
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. So before we leave, let's hear Irish Weather from Sally Schaefer and Tyler Bagwell.
Songs is stuck in my head. It's yesterday's coffee, washed down the dust. So on there is city, mortar and rust, and the leaves in the sidewalk too damp to crack. I feel that I never get the wind at my back, and it's down to the river where a lone seagull flies. Cause I'm so lonesome, I wish I could cry. Dark in the doorstep, an Allen Street dive. Eamon O'Connor, he pulls off the pints and the rain in the window. He's beaten and bare, catches the rosin climbing up through the air. The boxes are breathing, what a terrible scene. Everyone's singing to Fiddler's Green, and I still hear the music as I crawl out the door. Can't quite remember what I came down here for, and I'm sick of this Irish weather. Blows hard off the Bird Island pier. I could use just a little shelter. I'm damned if I think that I'll get any here.
It's way o'er the phone and come back again. The sooner the better when choosing to swim. Quick shelter in tents or get soaked with the grain. You're walking in circles, forgetting the names of people you know and places you've been, like Arthur and Emrys, round tables with friends, all withering slowly in dampening woods. This train's moving backwards, I wish that I could. I'm trudging down cobbles with sleet-covered bins, cast out in a city where I've never been, where the trolley-strewn bridges are littered in scenes depicting strange places dashed lost dreams. Now voices and shadows appear around the bend. Their muttering sayings have known to me then. And I still hear the music triad with disdain, asking why I didn't come in from the rain.
And I'm sick of this Irish weather. From the gasworks was the Bird Island Pier, I could use just a little shelter. And I'm damned if I think that I'll get any here. Puddles, I'm working in rain. My boots ain't been dry since St. Swithin's Day, and I can't quite describe the shape that I'm in. If it gets any worse, I'll have to learn how to swim. I'm wandering stones down at Holy Cross, looking for something I think that I lost, and I rest all my problems, my ancestors' graves, wonder why they settled this god-awful place. I'm sick of this Irish weather. The wind blows hard off the Bird Island Pier. I could use just a little shelter. I'm damned if I think that I'll get any here.
Well, guys, man, this has been great. This has been so much fun, and listen to your music and your stories. You've just had me on the edge of my seat. We have to do this again, because I know you haven't run out of stories yet, and you guys are just going to keep evolving too with what you do and how you're doing it. So we'll have to definitely keep in touch and have another episode down the road. But
thanks. When we have a big show coming up again, we will.
Well, yeah,
we'll have to come back. We should plug our show that's coming up.
Oh yes, we never talked about the show, so let's spend a couple minutes here before we leave about the show that's coming up. January
31st, Saturday, January 31st at Sportsman's Tavern. We are doing a tribute to Bob Dylan's 1976 album Desire, and also songs from the Rolling Thunder Review. And we're doing it as the four-piece, the Travesties. So me and Tyler with Patty Jackson on bass and Mark Smith on drums. And we also invited some guests to perform. You know, the album's mostly stripped down fiddle, guitar, bass, and drums, which is why we picked it. Not only is it the 50th year anniversary, but also it was like, oh, this instrumentation is exactly what we are in the band. But there are a couple other instruments that appear. So we asked Kathy Carvagna to do accordion and keys, Dave Meintzer on some lead guitar, and Jamie Sunshine on percussion, especially congas, because that appears on Hurricane and some of the other songs. And they'll be doing some vocals as well. So we're doing all the songs from the album and some other things from Rolling Thunder. And Rolling Thunder, actually, that tour stopped here. So they you can see in the Martin Scorsese film, they're in the the ponchos you wear at Cave of the Winds. I was like, I recognize this tunnel, and it's oh yeah, they're like at Niagara Falls wearing the ponchos, and they
performed at the Tuscarora.
They went to the Tuscarora reservation, and they did kind of a cultural exchange. Like they performed, and people from the reservation did some performances, and then they did the tour show at Niagara Falls Convention Center. And Dave Meintzer, who will be on the show, he was there. He was at that show. So he's our historian for that night. Wow. When we talk about some of the background of the songs. And it's doors at 7, music at 8. And you can get advance tickets for $15 at sportsmansbuffalo.com or showclicks.com if you search for the Travesties, or it's $20 the day of the show if you get them at the door.
Right. But you don't want to wait, kids, because you don't want to get to the Sportsman's and be turned away.
That is true. You get
yeah.
there early and get dinner beforehand.
Yep, get your dinner, get your seats. I'll be there with my camera.
All right.
Yeah, taking some shots, and as long as it's okay, because I like to ask everybody if it's okay.
Of course it is.
Of course.
But again, Sally, Tyler, thanks for coming down. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And I'm going to give a little shout out because Sally actually reached out and says, "Hey, we're doing this cool thing. How can we get on the show and talk about it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So for everybody out there who's listening, who is a musician, knows someone in the music industry from Buffalo or Western New York, have them reach out to me. I don't know everybody. I've met a lot of cool folks who have reached out to me, or I've just kind of happened to see them out or find them on social media and stalk them on social media. But don't be afraid to ask. It might be a while because it's getting the schedule is getting quite full, but please feel free to bug me and ask about being on the show and telling your story, because that's what it's all about. So again, Tyler, Sally, thanks for being here. And for everyone that's tuned in, we hope you've had just as much fun as we have. As always, you can find the podcast where you get your podcasts at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, YouTube, thebuffalohive.com, and of course you can always find it at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music, and I'll have those links and ways that you can maybe download some music, see some videos, and just keep up to date on where Sally and Tyler are going to be playing, both solo and together, and with the Travesties. So until next week, bye-bye. In the Flamingo Lounge is made possible in part by catslikeus.com, your online store for authentic vintage clothing and accessories. Buffalo Ironworks, an intimate live music venue and bar located in the Cobblestone District in downtown Buffalo. And by Diamond Hawk Golf Course and Pub, Western New York's premier golf course, restaurant, and banquet facility. At the Hawk, the bar is hopping year-round with live music every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and some other nights, too. Tune in for a new episode every Saturday at 9 a.m. EST at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music. Bark, Zoe, bark. Good girl.